growing up in a haunted house. My house became haunted ever since it was built. So it wasn't the house, it was the land. It was a pretty big property, around 40,000 square feet, and around it was just fields. In the radius of around 1 kilometre, there was nobody, no population. Around 6 to 7 people worked on the property full time to maintain it, and every single one of them had a story to tell. When the house was being built, construction workers used to see this weird animal who looked like a rabbit. When they went to catch it, it would turn into a rapper and fly away in the air and would just vanish. Yes, a rapper. That animal would suddenly turn into an object and vanish. This story has been told to me by 3 different people over the years. When me and my siblings were little, my mother used to hear jingling of anklets at night. My father was always away on business trips, and helpers were not allowed inside the residential property, so we used to be alone. There was no one inside the house, and the jingling sounds and sounds of people running around in the lounge were always heard. Things took a major turn when we grew older. One time a maid suddenly came over to my mother and asked her, "Yes, ma'am, what is it?" My mother gave her a confused look. She told, "You called for me." My mother never did. She told her you were standing on the stairs staring at me when I asked, "Do you want anything, ma'am?" You just gestured me with your hand to come to you. I completed my work and came. When my mother told her that I didn't call you, I was in my room the whole time. Her face literally turned pale. Another time, I was alone in my home and I heard a door opening and then closing. Imagine those doors that have a door closer on them that are made of wood. They make a big sound when they are closed. When I heard it, I went downstairs to check, and the door was closed and everything was normal. I thought maybe it's air, which is suspect because air can't open a wooden door. But that was just me coping. I closed all the windows, so there was no air coming from anywhere, and went back upstairs. The moment I was on my last step, I heard the sound again of the door opening and then closing. Now I was beginning to realise that this was spooky. I just stood there for a minute, but again went downstairs anyway. I was in the middle of the stairs and I saw that the door was just hanging in between, like not closed and not open. That was impossible, as the door had a door closer on it. Who the heck would have opened it? All the doors and windows were locked. No human and no air. I just stood there a bit frozen and taken aback. I looked at the door for like 5 seconds, and then boom, it closed itself with a bang. Like a person just shut the door hard. I ran upstairs and increased the volume on the TV so I wouldn't hear the spirit any longer. One time I was awoken by a large banging sound, like someone banging the door very hard. The sound was coming from the lounge, which was a bit far away from my room. It was about 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe. I went to check on it. I was surprised at why anyone else wasn't woken up, as the sound was very loud, but I didn't give it much thought. When I reached the door, I was so shocked. The sound was coming from behind the door, as if someone was banging on it. But as loud as the sound was, the door was not vibrating. It was still. Again, I stood there thinking, what the hell is happening? I was convinced it was a thief or something, so I peeked through the window that was beside the door, and there was no one there. The sound was still coming, but there was no one behind the door. It was a very strange experience. But As I told that we were experiencing these things since childhood, I just turned and went back to my room to sleep. There was this one thing that used to happen regularly. Whenever one of us was sleeping alone in a room at night, they used to pull the toe of our foot. I swear this happened to me too many times, I'd lost count. Another thing that usually happened to my mother was that she got slapped on her leg. Even if we were in the room, she would wake up and angrily ask, "Did you just slap me?" I will sit there cluelessly, and then we'll both give each other that knowing look and go back to our work. And the most strange part is that I used to get dreams about a strange type of darkness lingering in our house. One would say that my mind was just playing games, but hear me out. One time I had a dream that there was a bunch of children between the ages of 3 to 6 sitting on our lawn, eating raw meat. The kids' clothes and bodies were filthy, and they were just devouring the meat that they had in their hands. I woke up feeling weird, but I didn't say anything. I went to the lawn to get some fresh air and saw that there was a trash bag there. I didn't give it much thought and went to the main lounge to eat breakfast. As I was eating, my mother came to me looking a bit uncomfortable and told me that when she woke, she found a cluster of meat on our lawn, like a bunch of meat pressed tightly together. That's when I told her about my dream, and both of us were just speechless. Voices in the hangar. I was at an airfield called Throckmorton in Worcestershire. We use the airfield as a training site for driver training, and I keep a number of the training fleet there, primarily stored in Hangar 1. At about 8:30 this morning, I let myself in, and because the rain was hammering and the wind was blowing, I closed the large roller shutter door behind me. Today Hangar 1 has 12 4x4 vehicles of various makes, all parked in a line, their rears about a metre away from the hangar wall. 10 minutes later, I've got my head in the back of a Shogun, taking an inventory of its contents, when I distinctly heard a male voice with a northern accent call out, "Okay, give it a try now." As I'm the only person in the hangar, I was a little surprised to hear this. I look up and down the line of vehicles, but see nobody, so I walk to the front and look up and down, but still cannot see a soul. From here I can also see the rest of the hangar, and it's patently obvious I'm the only person here. I venture a "hello?" but get only silence back. Now, I grew up with ghostly goings-on, voices and doors closing mysteriously when nobody's about, and it's never bothered me before, but I'm getting spooked. I open up the shutter door. It's a loud clanking monstrosity. You can drive a Cessna through, so nobody has come or gone without me noticing. Now I'm really getting spooked, so I quickly jump in my car and head off to the main gate to see Darren, the site facilities manager. Darren immediately sees that I'm not my usual bubbly self, and I tell him the story. "Yeah, that makes sense," he says, before telling me that during World War II, Throckmorton was a base for Wellington bombers. On one occasion, a Wellington was having engine trouble, so they pushed it back into the hangar and started to have a look at it. One mechanic was on the wing tinkering under the cowling, and his mate was standing by on the ground next to the prop. When the mechanic on the wing told his mate to give it a try, the other swung the prop. The engine started immediately, and the lad overbalanced and fell towards the blade, which made short work of him. Darren went on to say stuff often goes missing in Hangar 1 and reappears a few days or a week later, or gets moved about, but voices are very unusual. As I had to go back, I kept the roller door open and the engine on my car idling. The scariest ghost encounter I've ever had. I've had a lot of scary and paranormal things happen to me, usually because I've always lived in older houses growing up. However, while they were all scary, nothing beats this experience I had back when I was a child. This happened back when I was 10. My family and I were between houses, and my great-grandfather told my parents that my family could live in his house. He was in a retirement home and was not going to go back. I've been there a bunch of times growing up, and there was never anything too bad. Maybe just some weird noises from empty rooms, like knocking or things falling over. However, when we moved in, things got a little more scary. I don't know why, but we were only allowed to live on the first floor, and we could use the basement. The second floor was off limits to us. Honestly, I never liked the second floor, but it wasn't that bad. I only really started to hate it when the door that led to the stairs would open overnight. It was scary, and now that I'm older, it might have just been my parents being snoopy. But this isn't about the second floor. This is about the basement. I hated that basement. It was a mostly finished basement with doors that led to other rooms, and the only working light was the one above the stairs and the one in the main area of the basement. It was one of those hanging lights. There was just a single bulb that you would have to use a string to turn on. Whenever I would go down there, usually whenever I was alone, it just felt off. It felt like something bad would happen or that something was watching me. Well, one day my mum asked me to go down to the basement to grab something from the freezer that we kept down there. I walked down the stairs and everything is normal. That feeling is still there, but it wasn't worse than normal. I get to the deep freezer and open it. From behind me, I hear someone fall from one of the side rooms. I panicked, but kept on looking for what my mum had asked for. As soon as I found it, I heard footsteps behind me. I ran to the stairs. I didn't even close the deep freezer. I ran up the stairs, and as I'm running, I can hear something following me up the stairs, like really loud and booming footsteps. I get to the door of the basement and I try to pull it open, but it's stuck. So my little 10-year-old body is slamming against the door, trying to get out as the footsteps get louder. After about 10 seconds, I get the door open and slam it shut after I get through the door. I heard just one loud bang from the other side of the door, like someone punched it. Like any child would, I go crying to my mum about what had happened, and she told my dad. He looked through every nook and cranny of that basement and found nothing. Like nothing was out of place, nothing was left open. It was just as it was before my grandfather moved out. Safe to say, I never went to the basement alone again.